Today we have obviously Mr. Jason Beckton on the line. Jason is a professional geologist, over 30 years in the industry, including in Australia, South America, and now Europe. Jason's been responsible for some major discoveries.
I hasten to add all those discoveries are team efforts,
Cool.
as they will be shortly in Europe, or already are in Europe. So again, what I would encourage folks to do is to jump on and send questions as we go. There's a few key slides which I'll dwell on a little bit more, and there's also functionary slides. This slide starts with an image of the drill rig in August last year. Importantly, we went from zero to permitting to drilling in a few months. It's quite a functional part of the world. Arctic Drilling, who I worked with many years ago in Chile, excellent operators, and operate to a high environmental standard, which is important in any jurisdiction in Europe. Standard disclaimer, I'll make some comments about future growth, particularly with the existing resources and prospects in Finland and Slovakia. So we're going to talk, the first component of the presentation is about the rare earth assets in Finland, but then importantly, we'll also discuss the important progress we've made over the years in Slovakia, where we first listed in 2020. We can see some share price movement at the moment, and it is topical given that we're seeking to issue shares and raise some more money to generate more results for shareholders. So image there is topically for PRS shareholders is the change in price, floor price, which is understood to be an agreement and released between a private company, MP Materials, and the United States government. I think that's topical, and we'll come back to that in terms of this is what's been happening for many years with Chinese enterprises, with government investment in rare earth enterprise. There's nothing new or different about it. It just happens to be a different jurisdiction. Importantly, with all of these enterprises, it's not just assets, it's people. I've worked with some of the people on this deck for 20 years, including Tom Mann, Peter Nightingale, Richard Edwards, the Ms Corp shop out of Sydney, where in fact all of my work is based out of. Tom Mann has been chair of large groups in the past, including Aon Copper, and my background, as you heard, was technical, geological, but also corporate. Importantly, I've been a public company director since 2007, on and off, with Chinalco in the past, and recently and currently with LDR as a non-exec. And there's some advisory roles for UVA and Japango Japan. With Peter Nightingale being an executive director is very important. He knows the Corporations Act inside out. We pride ourselves on transparency, good and bad, of the company's progress. So Peter assists me in that regard and has done on and off since 2004. John Leving's probably technically our most gifted geologist in the company, responsible for a major gold discovery in the past in Tennant Creek, White Devil, and also put together the drill out plans for Korsnäs rare earths and also Slovakia as well. It has a significant impact on that planning. Stephen Gemmell, importantly, you need a planning engineer in the team with vast corporate background as well to make sure we're not being overly aggressive in our future predictions, but also to do early litmus tests on our projects to make sure they are, in fact, they do have a destiny that's going all the way commercially. And Richard Edwards, who is company secretary, fortunately for PRS, given that he has much larger responsibilities with Alpha HPA and Nickel Industries. So moving on to jurisdiction from people, we basically have both our projects, both Slovakian precious metals and base metals and rare earths in the EU. And one jurisdiction, Finland, has recently been the #1 ranked jurisdiction on the planet for foreign direct investment in resources. That's assisted in some ways by what we see with EU level investment, even in early stage projects. And we'll talk about how we're PRS shareholders were the beneficiaries of that late last year. And you continue to be with EU non-dilutionary investment in our metallurgical efforts. And you can see a quote there, which I won't read verbatim, but from the EU Commissioner, about the fact that these elements are sought to feed hopeful industries in Central Europe in particular. Manufacturing still is a big part of the European economy mix, and without rare earths, and some of that manufacturing be moribund. So we'll talk about that. This is again a macro slide on the market. Even the Chinese have urgent need of supply internally, domestically. So really an increased, it's getting towards 30–40% now of ex-Chinese production of rare earths. That's fine, but the downstream part of the business, which we're not part of really, we're the upstream resource supply solution to the problems of no supply in Europe. But the processing side of things, I hasten to add, for shareholders' benefit, we're looking at providing a product that can be processed easily in Europe. There's facilities at the moment in Estonia and France, third-party companies that we are in very early discussions with, while we get on with de-risking our own concentrate material from coarseness. And of course, there's demand, whether it's manufacturing or defence. We can see robust demand into the future. Funding, not just from the United States, but more importantly, more relevantly for PRS in Europe, including a large $8.4 billion US fund recently promulgated generally by the Germans, but also other jurisdictions in Europe. So that the macro behind the PRS share price is there in terms of the general environment and the local environment, which you can see on the left-hand image of local support for the mine going forward, or the project of coarseness, is also important. As is, of course, the capital structures. Two sort of elements to this slide. We have a market cap that reflects share price performance, which has been inarguably quite flat. We'd like to see that come back, and there'll be some initiatives to make that happen through both future probable resource growth, speculative comment, and also hopefully positive metallurgical results, another speculative comment, but also less speculative, gold, silver, copper drilling in Slovakia. So cash is why at the position there is why we're in the middle of a fundraising initiative now to execute those priorities. And we have a loyal cohort of shareholders supporting the current raise, which we'll talk about shortly. This is important, and we did release this April, comparing the resource only. I hasten to add reserves that we're not allowed to compare our inferred resource at coarseness, which has double, but we can only compare it with other resources. The one thing to take away from this slide, you can see the mathematics of tons, grade, market cap comparison. So the graph in front of you plots basically market cap as the size of the bubble. The position on the graph on the lower right graph is grade. So we're at sort of an average of 1% for hard rock rare earths, about approximately 5 times what the average grade of a clay rare earth deposit or ionic rare earth deposit, obviously a different part of the tonnage curve. So at the moment, we're just under 14 million tonnes. We think that should, with the exploration target, increase, of course. So that red dot hopefully increases in circumference, because that's with respect to market cap. As you can see, we get superior grade in tonnes with much larger market cap companies, particularly in Western Australia. And we'll talk about why we think PRS has a competitive advantage over all of those projects, mainly to do with electricity price in a minute. We think the tonnage will increase, so that the vertical or the tonnage graph on the left-hand side of the graph should see a movement of that red dot in the future. So the benchmarking is a necessary part of this job to make sure we're not wasting time for shareholders with the asset. And you can see we're not. We're in the right position to grow the company's value and inventory. So that leads to strategy and size of the prize. This is something I learned from Melbourne private equity a long time ago with EMR, was that really make sure you are developing an asset that has at least the possibility to compete with your peers. This is not an academic exercise. We want to maximise the resource to underwrite the future development, particularly at coarseness, but also Ottenmaki, as you'll see on the rare earths. That also applies to precious metals, where we're looking at more large tonnage, slightly lower grade assets. We obviously have a lot of high grade targets ready to go. In fact, we'll talk about that. The fact that we've got 10,000 metres already planned for Slovakia to drill now. We think that we need to step back and take a holistic view of that, though. Cost of the test, metallurgy is being offset to some extent by a large grant from the welcome grant from the Rare Earth Magnet Hub, or REM Hub grant, which is a consortia where we successfully applied to study ways of processing rare earths from the tailings at the Causeness mine. So that's just one component of the resource. The main component's hard rock, and we'll be seeking future grants. As one of the questions we received was, what about future EU support? And it's not just the tailings, obviously, that's of interest, because there's a double benefit there of environmental cleanup plus producing critically required rare earth material oxide. But we are looking at a program of the main game, which is the ever-increasing resource. Chances of success, and your minimum success to us is a few things. One is the ability to make a mine, so the early test work, which is underway. Recently visited the lab at Albion in Brisbane, the core lab. We'll talk about their outcomes in a minute, or projected outcomes. It's a brownfields type asset, was already drilled in the past, as you'll see shortly, with $16 million worth of drilling already completed on Causeness alone, let alone Otten and the assets in Slovakia. And we'll talk about what we believe is a paradigm shift of the Slovakian gold asset, with a low angle normal fault and some mineralized systems underneath that fault, which has changed the game there. So again, the Finnish asset, a bit of an unusual slide, but it points, the red line points to Causeness on the west coast, which is Ostrobothnia, the Swedish-speaking part of Finland, very industrial part of Finland, with a port to the north, Kokkola. You can see myself shaking the hand of Marcus Nierstam below. We able to secure all the historic data of the mine, not just the material that was online. A lot of fantastic metallurgical floor plans of the processing plant, which is behind me there in the photograph, and the covered shaft, which is a cylinder. Australian investors wouldn't be used to shafts having a concrete shroud around them, but that's what happens in Scandinavia. Although I hasten to add, the climate is not particularly brutal in this part of Finland. It's moderated by the ocean. We have also an interesting geographical advantage of being adjacent to a rare earth processing facility of a third party, Neo Materials Refinery, in Estonia. I hasten to add, we don't have any commercial agreement with them as yet, given that we've just doubled the resource. So we'd like to see more metallurgical work before we talk to third parties to maximise the upside for PRS shareholders. As in most companies that I've worked in, there's always one dominant project that delivers most of the value, and that's because it's quite advanced. The Causeness Rare Earth project, it's gone from 0 to 13.5 million tonnes of JORC 1% total rare earth oxide since December last year, so in 9 months. Again, we talk a lot about the exploration target, the fact that that'll increase. We've also recently announced agreements with the Australian private public entity in ANSTO, or commercial public entity in ANSTO, who are famous in Australia for de-risking rare earth projects, having built Lynas many years ago, and continuing to work with rare earth productions or aspirants to production throughout the world. GTK, the Government Geological Survey and Technical Engineering Survey, assisting in tailings test work in particular as well. And the mining school in Oulu University is also advancing some crushing test work for us at the moment. So there's a number of news flow pieces that will continue to come out on the metallurgy. There's no inertia there, where we have material being worked on in Finland and Australia, and in the past with the characterisation work in Jakarta or Indonesia in parallel. The other news flow will come from probably soon, some more sampling of historic diamond core, Importantly, when we started this work, and this explains the velocity of the resource estimates, we were able to sample old core, which most cases the rare earth was not even sampled; it was whole core, because prior to that, in the 60s and 70s, the initiative, well, 50s they started. The initiative was to find lead at coarseness, which is in fact a late accessory mineral over the repeated stacked rare earth zones, and it only occurs in one or two locations. And there's only one location at the Corsness mine where they proved up 700,000 tonnes at 3% lead. And as you can see from the below resource estimate and exploration target, which again is a JORC announced target and estimate in April of this year, we have increased that nearly 20-fold in terms of the rare earth resource versus we're not particularly interested in the lead, although the metallurgists anecdotally like it because it helps with flotation. Another component, which is smaller, of course, but free dig, should things work out metallurgically, is the tailing storage facility, which we have done an exploration target on, given that we drilled it out to that level anyway in February 2023. Significant grades, in this case 3 times the grade of your average ionic clay or rare earth deposit in Brazil or Western Australia. Then there's test work undergoing, right, that because it was already available, is a lanthanide concentrate storage, which is put together by the Outokumpu people who operated the lead mine. Very high grades rare earths, obviously, at 2.5%, just sitting on free dig again, and we've sent 300 kilos, which as a proxy until we do more metallurgical drilling on the hard rock, and that work will indicate some of the performance of the materials at Ansto as well. But I hasten to add, the metallurgical test work will just keep progressing in the background on hard rock, soft rock targets as we go along. So I don't want to be too repetitive, but the inferred resource is stated and known, and look for growth. But probably a few takeaways from this slide is significant terbium and dysprosium numbers, TB, DY, which are the higher value basket, along with the important NdPr, magnetic total rare earth numbers, which are significant as well. And so we think the best thing to do is to operate these hard rock mines or soft rock in terms of tailings, and you're moving not much of Finland for the amount of rare earths you're producing versus the bulk tonnage, very ultra low grade competitors. You can see again the grade piece is important with all these numbers. I hasten to add, none of them being historic. All of these intercepts are from modern assays that we have cut and sent to the lab since 2023, because most of the drill holes were not sampled for rare earths. So investors should rest assured that we're not using historic, antiquated assays. One good thing was we didn't have to relog any of the drilling. It was already logged to perfection. The Outokumpu people knew they had a significant deposit on their hands, and they're very good at logging, but they of course were focused on another commodity, lead. And as I said earlier, there's a parallel stacked zones that dip gently to the east, and hence the simplicity of the geology. What you don't like to see, certainly not on my personal account, is complex geology. We don't see that. We also see evidence of high-grade zones with no drilling to the south. So conservatively, we've stopped the estimate there, and we just some extensional drilling this calendar year or early next calendar year will extend or convert some of that exploration target to even more inferred JORC. And this slide is somewhat busy, but you can see the black lines of the previous drilling, the colours of the coloured blocks of grade. Anything above red and purple we announce as inferred because it's above 0.5. The yellow and green are lower grade, although still valuable zones we don't even report yet on the resource. So there's the lower cut we need to keep working on, and that is assisted by more metallurgical test work. Because in the past, the lower cut was based on benchmarking, and we'd like to improve that geostatistical process. The TSF, you can see in the centre upper part of the image, is what is called the tailing storage facility. That's the basically 750,000 tonnes exploration target at 0.6% total rare earth. You can see an image on the right-hand side. That's the drilling program which occurred in February 2023 to help with the test work, both the test work material, because we drill metallurgical holes, and also the standard assaying to make up the exploration target. Importantly, that's the depth of winter when that was done, so we can work all year round on the project. Technically, John Levings, one of our directors, has completed 2 resource estimates. We can see, with also assistance from Bonar Harahap, our modelling expert, the left-hand image shows a void model of the old lead mine, which was only exploited one of the 5 or 6 zones we know of now. When I say 5 or 6, we think one of them splits into 2. There's probably 7 or 8, given there's more to the east as well, hence the aggressive exploration target. Importantly, the zones are also consist some 2 species of rare earth mineral hosts. One's apatite, which is a phosphate, quite easy to process generally, and allanite, which is tougher to process, and was silicate, and they're separate domains, which is good. Generally, most of the high grade appears to be in the apatite. There are some high grade allanite zones as well, of course, and the test work people are working on those. So. And that's what we mainly see in our northern project we'll talk about later at Otunmarki. Geologically, again, this is the one term to take away with you from today's discussion, is simplistic. It is quite easy to see where the zones are, and they continue, and they're not cut off by late faults or late dikes, which can make an underground mine non-commercial. The reason it worked, the lead mining, almost to perfection for 7 years for Outokumpu, was the simplistic zonal geology. The host rock is very robust and coherent, just basically a cooked sediment that doesn't move. So I think for me, what I like is the fact that all the zones remain open at depth, but also along strike. They're not pinching out. They're not. There's some variability, of course, in grade, as you saw in the earlier block model. But what is important is the relative planar nature of these zones. So should grow in a fairly simplistic way. Well, the simplest model we have, of course, is the tailings dam. You can see there that work's going on, not to be repetitive, but it's underway at Mining School Aulu, and some of the other material from the concentrate storage site is going to be reported on in the near future from the Brisbane Core Labs, who invented the Albion process of fine grind, quite a famous group there in Brisbane. And then again, that'll be on sent to ANSTO. So basically thick news flow in that regard. And this is another slide, but it breaks up what we're doing, because people have legitimate questions. You keep talking about metallurgy, but what's actually happening? This is an image from the 10th of September when I visited, along with John Levings and Mark Stemson, who's our consulting metallurgist overseeing the process. Core laboratories in Brisbane and Albion, hence the term Albion process, which they invented on fine grinding. Step 1 we're at the moment in Brisbane, and and this is without talking about what's happening in Finland, which is a separate parallel process. The mining and initial physical concentration, that's been done. That's already in Brisbane. Now we're working on making basically the job of Brisbane is to make a physical mixed rare earth concentrate. Then the job of Sydney ANSTO, as we've seen with other third-party companies lately, they do very well, and they've been doing it for 40 years, since Mount Weld in Western Australia, is to work on the process of separating the constituent rare earth oxides. And so that's kind of an exciting de-risking process that we're going through. Obviously, a lot of chemistry to be done, but it's well underway. Timelines, we don't want to be under promise and over deliver, or vice versa, but the point is we can't. Things seem to be going at a rapid clip at the moment in Brisbane, but I don't want to preempt the lab and push them on quality. So we'll report those numbers as soon as they come to hand. Positive or negative, there'll be no warehousing. Obviously, not obviously, but the initial indications are sound that we don't have any issues, nor have we had in the earlier characterisation work. This slide is our second rare earth project. Internally, it's caused a strong share price reaction in the past due to the hafnium numbers of April 2023. If you look at our share price graph, Again, it's a play repeat one, just like Corsness. There's 81 historical drill holes. We've only logged and assayed some of them. We'd like to see some consolidation work with some resources we surround there. High field strength elements such as hafnium, which is not a rare earth, but a very important industrial element associated with zircon, has caused some excitement in this project in the past. So we are, of course, monitoring that. Topically to our south, it doesn't impinge our project, is Google building a processing facility or a data center, because Finland has some of the lowest electricity costs on the planet, which we'll talk about in a minute, which goes to the attractiveness of a jurisdiction. To build a processing plant, you're building a factory, you need low electricity costs. As we'll see in a moment, it compares favourably with other Western jurisdictions. We also have a suite of projects, gold, silver, copper, in the Western Tethyan, which is topical, with a very busy southern part of the Tethyan in Serbia and Romania. We do see a lot more foreign entrants now into Slovakia, such as bull gold and military metals, and there's oil and gas drilling in the Vienna Basin in the west and in the east. So what we in here is a foreign direct investment friendly state. And we'll just go into some of the specifics. As I said, this shows the Western Tethyan belt all the way from Turkey, the very rich systems in Bor in Serbia. And we learn a lot from all the good work that's being done there by various companies. And we've applied that to one of our prospects, Zlatno. We really like what we see in terms of the initial geological work, and we need to get some drilling organised and perhaps some pre-geophysics organised on these targets. The one thing to take away from our main asset, which is under reapplication of Hadrusha Humre, I hasten to add, we're awaiting some government paperwork. Zlatno to the south is fully granted. These are 2 of our 6 projects in Slovakia. We have other exciting silver gold projects to the west and east, including Zemplin, Nova Banja, and Pukanec. All of them combined, and this is an important point, we have 10,000 metres planned right now ready to go. So there is an element with these projects of, it's a very big project suite of excellent high grade and moderate grade mega tonnage targets such as Zlatno. And what we keep seeing is the more we work on this, the patterns are repeating as what we're seeing in the southern Tethyan down near Serbia. So for example, one of our guys recently, Peter Zhitnan, put together a low angle normal fault concept, which is what we see, the same geometries where you see these mineralized flat makes, such as in Emperor in Fiji, but also porphyry feeders underneath them, such as Kokorikita in Serbia. So a recent fantastic discovery by the Dundee Group. So we really like the repeatability, and the pattern recognition work's going on, just needs a lot more drilling, and we're excited. One of my favourite Shopfa, I'd like to drill a lot more, one of the epithermal targets, which is our wheelhouse, as we've had success in the past in Mexico, and another company we're involved with in New Zealand. We think it's a bit of a sitting duck, this Hadrusha Humre and Zlatno area, so look forward to working on that, albeit it does have to compete with drill meters for the ever-growing resource in Finland at Korsnäs. Importantly, data sets are first class, and as you expect in the EU, it's Slovakia or Finland, both EEC, both EU. LiDAR data like this material, laser imaging through the forests. You can see all the thousands of workings at Pukanec. Some good trenching work. We haven't even drilled this project yet. This trenching was done by a precursor company in the 90s, and we look forward to following this up as well. Some spectacular grades such as Krakauer in Nova Banja, gold, silver, epithermal targets, and we basically are spoilt for choice. You do have to have internal rankings, so we know where we want to drill first, Pukanec, Zlatno, but other things will in due course be dealt with, whether it's us directly or with a partner remains to be seen. So just to cap off, and Anthony, I'm sure you'll tap me on the shoulder if I'm going over or under. People tire of the nasal monotone, but anyway, basically what we have now is a strong, thick news flow of metallurgical work and a lot of work in the background, and shareholders, past, present, future, been very patient with that news flow. Rest assured it's coming shortly. We also are working on right now refining the growth drill plan for coarseness, which also involves some metallurgical drilling very close to the high-grade zones to produce at least a 300 kilogram hard rock sample for another metallurgical run, which, you know, we're excited to continue. Jockey Kangas is, for me, we'd like to consolidate the project and drill up a competitive target with coarseness, because there is a medium-term dominance play with rare earths. We see our friends in Mining Finland, with state-owned enterprise with the large Sockley asset. We like to try to compete with that and come up with some strategic concepts for rare earths in the mainland EU. And I hasten to add that this project is not in a jurisdiction that is new to mining. Finland is one of the best jurisdictions I've worked in 30 years. You can see the guys on the right, some of the old miners. I don't know if you can see it hidden behind my image, but and myself cutting core last August. We're hands-on, but we also respect the old work that's been done. And the same applies to Slovakia, where you could see we had some very exciting targets, just a matter of our balance sheet being able to cope with 2 targets at once. News flow has been strong in the past and will be in the future. The past is always an indicator of the future. I won't go through this verbatim, but you can see we are working on both project areas, Finland and Slovakia, and that'll continue. We like brownfields assets, and they both arguably are. So investment summary, I don't want to repeat this earlier slide, but basically JORC growth, rare earth plus metallurgical output. Jockey Kangas or Yocky Kangas, look for growth from zero again to resource in the future. We need to do sampling and some corporate work there. And Slovakia, we need to internally rank which of these large-scale targets we drill first, probably in calendar 2026. We think that the macro, well, with the environment generally is good for obviously precious metals, but also rare earths at the moment, given where we're at. And I'm just getting to a quick nationalistic slide, but not for Australia or Slovakia, but Finland's ranked #1 in the world right now. There's the usual reasons. First world areas have great data sets, skilled workforce, but one of the key pieces is opinions to one side. The average electricity price of Finland of 7 cents a kilowatt hour is approximately a sixth that of the Australian average, and under a half of the Brazilian average. So we think to build a mine, you need electricity, it needs to be reliable, and it needs to be cheap if you like margins, which is what we do like. And we think it's a fantastic jurisdiction to be in, but not just because of the usual government support pieces, just because mathematically, day after day, it's a cheap place to operate. And to that end, we are also marketing the company. We've been invited. It's a big thing. Every 2 years, they hold the only significant mining conference in Finland, in Levi. We're presenting at that at the end of August, as well as Kokkola, which is the major port in Vaasa. We're supporting that process in mid-October, so that's mainly to make the EU environment aware of who we are, because certainly Australians are becoming more aware thanks to the help of Fensum Advisory and others. There is an offer that's contemporary right now. Please send me an email, which you will have on the last slide if you're interested in participating. If you are a shareholder, great. You can exercise your rights up until including 24th of September. If you're not, there is a shortfall process. Please apply through me, and I can pass you on to our lead manager, Michael Suchik and Mahe Capital, to discuss shortfall allocations. What is certainly a well-priced offer at 1.5 cents in the black, in fact, where we are at 1.9, reasonably unusual. And directors are taking up their pro rata allocation. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anthony. Q&A. I suspect there's some questions.
Thanks, Jason. Excellent presentation. Thank you again. And now, everyone, if you'd like to submit your questions, and I will just get this off screen so I can look at questions. So give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. So get rid of that, sorry. Back to screen.
Doing a good job. Don't be sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just stop sharing for a second and we'll go to the panel. And there are some questions coming in. Great. Thank you, guys. Okay. From Mr. Michael Susik himself. What are the key catalysts over the next 12 months, Mr. Jason? Key catalysts.
Yeah, well, key catalysts should be catalysts suggest change, so more change on the resource size, but also for the first time, some real metallurgical outcomes for the Finnish asset. Also look for innovative financing and work on the Slovak precious metal and base metal effort. I know they're very generalistic answers, but the resource, in my view, will double again. As we've said in the past, it's what happened before, so I don't mind saying it again, because I have an internal target anyway of well in excess of where we are. Without mentioning a number and getting in trouble with the authorities, it's basically we seek to repeat what we've already done in terms of size. And for the first time, we seek to de-risk the asset on the soft rock, i.e. tailings and concentrate, but on the hard rock as well with future metallurgical work. No red flags to date, so that's healthy. Don't look for us picking up a lot more projects. As you can see, we've got plenty on our plate. If anything, we're going to refine that somewhat. So I'd say that's a key point.
Excellent. Now, Jason, before you mentioned the very cheap electricity in Finland, which is very, very cheap compared to Australia and elsewhere, even Brazil. Also a question about environmental approvals in Finland, Slovakia. What's the environmental approval system like? Are they supportive of mining? What's it like from government support, environmental, all that kind of stuff? Any comment on that question?
So Finland and Slovakia, both part of the EU and EEC, Natura 2000 in the case of Slovakia. We've never had any issues talking about Slovakia first permitting holes. My take on any project is see who's the real landlord, who owns the land that you're drilling on. In the case of both Slovakia and Finland, coincidentally, it's the state forestry groups. So you're already operating in both jurisdictions in an area of primary production, so actively logged, well-managed forestry enterprises, and they don't see us as being a competitive land use because likely in the case of both environments, it's an underground mining solution, not just for environmental reasons, just because from a planning engineering point of view, that would be the most profitable way to mine these things. So normally a mining lease from zero to mining lease in Finland, just similar to Australia, can be within 2.5 years if there's no environmental imposts. Slovakia, same, permitting tailings dams, things like that. That's an interesting one. That's always, if you drill down to it, that is always the main permitting job, both here in Australia and elsewhere. Same in Europe. Importantly, we already have a tailings dam under tenure at Korsnäs in Finland. So the concept there may be to process the tailings and to concurrently make way for additional tailings in the future while reducing the size of the existing footprint, but reusing that footprint in the future. And we're already in discussions with the municipal council. So, for example, the tailings drill out job, just to give a quick story, the council helped us remove the 50-year regrowth trees on the old tailings dam. The Municipal Council of Korsnäs, or Korsnäs Commune, excellent group of people, then used the mulched material to heat the town. They helped to make sure we had enough ice for the drill rig on the tailings dam, not that it was a critical issue, and sent all the samples all within 4 weeks. So really turnkey operations there. Like any first world jurisdiction, people are allowed to raise concerns, particularly with water. I'm fanatical about the care that we take, the footprint we leave behind, and hence first world drilling companies such as Arctic Drilling that we use, and other groups in Slovakia that have done very well in the past. GeoOps out of Bulgaria, first-class outfit, because the initial impact, which is reasonably low given we're at drilling stage, will change as we develop things. I've worked underground in Western Tasmania, very sensitive rainforests at Henty as a young geologist. And I learned from the management back then of how to manage and minimise impact, but to maximise economic impact, which is why our permits, I don't envisage any problems at the moment, but certainly we're working to keep things on an even keel.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. Now, another question here is about your silver prospects in Slovakia, I guess. Are you looking to revisit those silver prospects from 22, 23?
Yeah, so there's some unfinished business, particularly at Schopfer, which has the same metals ratio we saw at Palmarejo of 100 to 1. Averages so far 300 ppm. I really like Shopra in the Hadrusha reapplication at the moment. Zemplin project in the east, which we were very excited about texturally. Some high-grade spikes and broad silver zones. We don't have gold supported Zemplin yet, so competitively that does drag it back a bit. There was a new gold zone to the north we're working on. It's very early stage, given rock chips, but Zemplin remains a live project for that reason. Some third parties north of us at Zemplin are doing well, so rest assured the portfolio stands as it is in Slovakia because there's still value in it. If a project's rendered not to have value, such as we dropped Rudno in the past, then we drop it. But all projects still have a future. Yasuni, for example, we dropped that as well. Environmental issues, but also quite moderate gold response, given there was some tungsten. So we're focused on the gold, silver, copper. Zlatno is really interesting given the historic copper numbers, which was spoken about. Was never assayed for gold. I don't think it'll be a big silver win there, but that's a moderate tonnage grade concept rather than the low tonnage high grade concept that we've always worked on.
Excellent. Thanks again. Now questions going in. Thank you, guys. And more questions are welcome. From William. I understand that Finland's proximity to Russia can be a concern geopolitically. Definitely. Do you do anything different as a result when it comes to managing the company's asset base in Finland?
To some extent. So, for example, we used to have a lithium project near the Russian border, Serenkala. The main reason we dropped that was, well, lithium price, not really. It was more about the fragmented land ownership position there, and we struggled to confirm the location of a historic beryl lithium anomaly. The Finnish people, as the president recently said, Alexander Stubb, are very level-headed people. Very secure environment investment-wise. Agnico Eagle, for example, investing 4.5 billion on an underground gold mine at Levi, where we'll visit in late October. A lot of foreign direct investment into Finland, despite the sadness of the geopolitical situation on the border. We've seen a readjustment. In fact, it's worked in PRS shareholders' favour. The economy of coarseness, for example, a significant part of that was exporting furs to Russia. No longer the case. So they're looking at alternative employment opportunities. And the Russian situation, I think I'm not and I certainly don't talk politics of Finland in terms of which political party, but we see both sides of the political spectrum in Finland being pro-resources to strengthen the economy of Finland. And the same applies in Slovakia. We've noticed no real difference in operations due to changing governments over the years, due to robust democracies in both cases.
Excellent. Thank you again. Another question here. Thanks, Adam. Adam, thanks, Jason. Good presentation. Thank you. What is the longer-term plan for Prospech? Progress to scoping PFS, partnerships, develop yourselves, monetize? All good questions.
Hey, it's good, Adam. Thank you. And I think one thing I look for on my personal account, I worry about a company that tries to develop a large project with respect to its market cap. So when I see a junior operating a large porphyry project in Chile or whatever that's going to cost $1 billion to build and their market cap's 10 million, then it's an avoid. For us, we know this is scalable, particularly at coarseness, where you have a tailings dam that is possibly faster production solution if things go well, with that caveat. So that will help us scale up a basic crushing flotation plant if we have to, like Bolnisi did in the past in the former Soviet Union in Georgia. Use second-hand material to build your cheapest, most efficient, environmentally sound crushing and flotation plant, basic technology. And so we have internal numbers which we can't obviously discuss because they're non-JORC, but what you look for is a market cap, not necessarily equivalence, but a close equivalence of the cost of future production versus market cap. So we don't see the need for a production partner in coarseness, which is the near-term production concept. That could change with a gold-silver outcome at Zlatno.
Great. Thank you again, Jason. Question here again from Michael. Thank you. Thanks, Michael. Any comment? Obviously, there's been some great success cases recently in rare earths, given the recent geopolitical situation with Mr. Trump and China, etc. Do you want to comment on, obviously, other companies? We don't really want to comment on anything other than Prospech, but there have been successes recently, including DTR, which obviously was mentioned in I think a tweet from Mr. President Trump. So it's seen a massive gain. I guess Jason, how do you view the rare earths kind of macro situation in terms of stock prices? How do we rate compared to other rare earth companies?
Well, and importantly, I'm a big fan of DTR and have in fact assisted Stephen Baghdadi and DTR board in the past. And my view on that project is fantastic gold project, Colosseum, that DTR has with unknown grade rare earth rings around the side of it. So the rare earth upside there is early stage, but to the credit of DTR, they've disclosed that it's early stage. In our case, it's actually a resource with known numbers. The current resource base for PRS is 13.6 million tonnes higher than that of DTR. Obviously, there's a market cap differential. We don't get mentioned, and I don't expect us to ever get mentioned by the federal government in Finland directly, by the head of state, but we are being supported importantly by the Finnish government, and we are, I think, the only new large resource, well, I would argue large resource of high-grade material in mainland EU of late that's not metallurgically difficult like some of the projects in Sweden. And so my view is, yes, it's a competition, and it's fantastic to see some larger bids coming in for rare earth entities, particularly if you're mentioned by a head of state. I don't expect that'll occur for PRS, but what will occur for PRS is increased news flow, all in the right direction. And then like sheep heads in a pen, we start to get looked at a lot because frankly, we're the only ones in Finland right now coming up with a supply solution. We're not there to innovate or make a new way to process rare earths. We're just there to produce material using existing technologies which shareholders have already paid for.
That's great. So if anyone's got a direct line to President Trump, please reach out. We're here. So more questions, Jason. Now, floor price. The US, talking about US again, the US recently effectively set a floor price for rare earths in the United States, thanks to the US deal. US Defense Department invested $400 million into US rare earths mine, MP Materials mine in the US. Now, let's talk about Australia having a floor price as well for rare earths. How about the EU? Is there any talk about a floor price being set by the EU authorities?
I don't believe so directly, although they can see that every single Chinese entity that works in the rare earths market is in fact a state-owned enterprise. And so the concept that you can't have Western state-owned enterprises getting involved with rare earth production's quite odd. I think it's fantastic what the Americans have done because they're not paying the full price. There is still a underlying spot price, for example, $83 for the basket of NdPr at the moment. And so you have to look at the mathematics which MP Materials have released. They are making the difference up between that spot and the current 110 amount, because in a way the spot price, as was recently pointed out by a large rare earth resource company here in Australia, in Iluka, is a contrived spot price that's been abused by third parties in China, and that's fine. That's competition, but let's compete equally. And I think it's fantastic that state-owned enterprises or state partially owned enterprises, as Department of Defence will own stock in MP Materials. We're not against shareholders being sovereign, particularly from the EU. Obviously, we have to be mindful of current shareholders' interests. But I think it's a healthy and robust competitive development. You cannot compete with states if you're private on your own. So yes, the reaction is almost natural. It's happened in the US lately, and it'll probably happen in the EU, but I can't speculate on that. I'd encourage it. Yeah.
Excellent. And on the EU again. So again, EU set targets, their own targets for domestic rare earth supply by 2030. As we showed in that earlier slide. And Jason, you've already received some support from Finland and the EU authorities. I think we already touched on this question, but can you expect more support from those same authorities in EU, Finland, Slovakia, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speculate. We just submitted a application for another grant with another entity within the EU, EIT, on June 13. We'll see how that goes. There's no feedback yet, but that's normal. And we monitor with the help of we have been successful with the grant, as you say, with RemHub, whose only task is to make a magnet with EU material. And we're the critical part of supplying the material for the magnet. And there's research people as part of that consortia. So generally to apply for grants, we've found, and in the past with the one successful attempt, it's part of a group, and we'll continue to engage with those groups, particularly out of Helsinki, who do a great job. And shout out to the REM Hub people and University of Mining School of Oulu for helping us with all of that. We'll continue to engage with that process.
Excellent. Thank you again. Back to Slovakia. So now the grades mentioned were up to 10 grams per tonne gold with multiple targets, which is pretty good from my non-geological perspective. So what work is proposed in Slovakia? I think you've already touched on this question. And what upside can you see from Slovakian projects?
Yeah, so there's internal competition even within Slovakia for drill meters. There's 10,000 meters currently planned. We know exactly where to drill every prospect, well, where we want to drill every prospect. There is I think, some more preparation work needed for Zlatno, including geophysical and geochemical refinement, not just to chase the old data, because there's a large-scale concept there, like we see at Emperor in Fiji. We need to balance that with the brownfield sitting duck targets, such as at Pukanech. So yeah, no, I think there's a mix of high grade, small tonnage, two different parts of grade tonnage curve, high grade, small tonnage, and then the mega tonnage, moderate grade Zlatno style targets. So for me, it's time to give a go at the macro target. So we need to do some more geophysical work, probably quickly.
Excellent. Thanks, Jason. We're nearly out of time, but Peter Arden's coming in with another question. Thanks, Peter. Jason, well done on the advancement of your projects, particularly Cornus. Thank you again. Several old Scandinavian-based metals and/or gold mining operations have associated REEs, rare earths, because of the somewhat unusual geological settings with the REEs of these deposits, which have been largely ignored in the past. To what extent does your understanding of the historic lead mineralisation at Cornus help you to find the best parts of the REE rare earth mineralisation? Thanks, Peter. Good question.
Peter, yeah, the esteemed analyst who I caught up with in Melbourne recently.
Yep.
Yeah, Peter, there's basically fluids follow architecture, as you know, and the rare earth is spatially earlier, or not spatially, it's in the same place in some cases, but temporally earlier. It occurs earlier by probably tens of millions of years, given the academic work that's happened at Cornus. And the lead is exploiting the lead plums, which sadly for Outokumpu, they found one at the Cornus mine and then drilled $16 million worth of drilling, kept finding rare earths for the benefit of PRS shareholders in the end. But it wasn't serendipity. They knew they were desperately seeking another lead plum, but it only occurs in minor levels, and hence most of the drill core wasn't sampled. And I don't judge that. When I was a young geologist in Broken Hill in 92, that's the same. If you couldn't see much base metal, you didn't even bother cutting it. They would log the rare earths and just leave it. But the other deposits, such as Norra Kar in Sweden, Ottenmaki, where we are, is more of a zirconium association, of a more magmatic style of mineralisation, rather carbonatite. Where we are is the academics in Belgium at KU Leuven. We had a fantastic master study completed that's called an anti-skarn, without getting too technical, but metallurgically very simple. And we don't mind the base metal piece, as I was alluding to earlier. The metallurgists anecdotally tell me that should help the flotation process. So basically the metallurgy is nothing new, nothing we don't have to innovate, we don't think. It's using existing technology, and flotation, which we all know, which was invented 110 years ago, is the likely concentrate route. I think that was a very generalistic answer to Peter's specific question, but
yeah, that's great. Thanks, Peter.
Follow up.
Guys, nearly out of time, so probably time for one more question if you want to ask it now. But some more questions that have come in previously. Jason, the gold price keeps hitting record highs every day of the week this year. Silver is obviously tracking behind gold, but also doing well. Any thoughts on the outlook for gold, silver, and obviously how that affects your projects in Slovakia?
Yeah, no, look, I think speculating on gold, silver, if I knew how to do it, I wouldn't be sitting with you here now. But what you look for is to take the speculative importance away from the project by having higher grade, high tonnage systems that weather the storm, such as mines that just keep going regardless, such as Palmarejo that we're involved with in the past, such as Waihi, where we're in northern New Zealand, epithermal deposit. So grade is your best insulator of economic performance. Not to be avoid the direct trying to pin me on future price of precious metals, but I would say that some jurisdictions that traditionally produce a lot of gold, such as Western Africa, are struggling. Whereas European operations that we surround, for example, in Slovakia, their publicly disclosed profits are through the roof. Rosalia, over 10 million euros a year on only 20,000 ounces. So these are very profitable underground operations. And that's, of course, helped by a strong EU gold price.
Excellent. Yeah, 100%. So last question, perhaps. You've done a lot this year, a lot ahead for 26. Jason, what are the key milestones investors should be looking at for the year ahead for Prospech?
Yeah, so look at differentiating us because of grade tons and metallurgy on the rare earths, and also innovative financing and work on the large tonnage work in Slovakia, basically. We appreciate it's a competition and shareholders being very patient. However, I'm very excited about it. I'm putting third-party work to one side to get on with it, and I'm just about to head back over and spend some time in the field to make sure news flow is punched out in a timely manner.
Thanks, guys. We're now at nearly finished, so I don't want to keep you guys too long away from your desks. So thank you again for your time today. Much appreciated. There's Jason's contact details if you'd like to reach out. Please follow us on our LinkedIn page. We're active on LinkedIn. Please check our website, obviously ASX, for all our news. Again, thanks for all those great questions. Anyone, if you've got more questions, please reach out to us. There's the email address there on your screen. Recording's been made, so we've got the recording for later viewing. And again, thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Fensum Advisory.
Thanks, guys. Thank you again.